Write any two factors affecting Hardy-Weinberg principle: genetic drift, gene flow, genetic recombination, mutation, and natural selection are the factors which affect the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. What is the significance of selectable marker in cloning vector? So the selectable marker in cloning vector, it helps in identifying and eliminating transformates. It selectively permits the growth of transformates. Codon AUG as So the codon AUG has dual function. It codes for the amino acid formyl methionine. It also initiates the protein synthesis with the binding of rRNA. What are the criteria of DNA to act as a genetic material? So genetic material must replicate its own copy, its replica. It should chemically and structurally be stable. It should also provide the scope for slow changes, that is mutation, that are required for evolution. So these are all certain criteria of DNA to act as a genetic material, and it should also be able to express itself in the form of Mendelian characters, the inheritance process of it. The part C, we have the 3-mark questions, especially name the types of vegetative propagules in the following plants. Potato, it is a tuber. Ginger is a rhizome. Bryophyllum, it is a leaf bud. These are the vegetative propagules. What is pollination? Mention any 4 features of wind pollinated flowers. Pollination is a process of transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of same or different flower of the same plant or different plant. Pollen grains, the 4 features of wind pollinated flowers are: pollen grains are light, pollen grains are non-sticky, stigma is large and feathery to trap pollen grains which are carried by the wind. They have single ovule in each ovary and numerous flowers packed into an inflorescence, so that they have more chances of pollination. So what is infertility? Give reasons for infertility in human beings. Infertility is the inability of the couple to reproduce children or offsprings in spite of unprotected sexual cohabitation. The reasons for infertility in human beings are physical aspects, congenital diseases, use of certain drugs, immunological and psychological aspects. What are analogous organs? Give any 2 examples. The organs that are anatomically different in structure, though they perform similar functions, are called analogous organs. Examples: wings of butterfly and birds, sweet potato and potato, eye of octopus and mammals, flippers of penguins and dolphins. Even though they are anatomically different in structure, they have the same function. Thus, these are all examples for analogous organs. Mention the types of carcinogen with an example for each. Physical carcinogens, the examples are X-ray, UV rays. Chemical carcinogens, nicotine in tobacco, mustard gas, coal tar, benzyl diazepine, asbestos. They are all the chemical carcinogens. Biological carcinogens are oncogenic viruses like polyoma virus, HTLV. They are all biological carcinogens. Write the meaning of following. Explant: any excised or separated vegetative part of the plant used in plant tissue culture is known as explant. The genetic ability of any cell, tissue and organ to develop into a complete plant in vitro or in lab condition is called as totipotency. Genetically identical plants obtained through plant tissue culture are called as somaclones. Then they have asked the 25th question as: draw a neat label diagram of simple stirred tank bioreactor. So since it's a 3-mark question, the diagram you have to draw and label 6 labelings. So you'll be getting that marks according to it. And mention 3 causes for biodiversity loss: habitat loss and fragmentation, overexploitation, alien species invasion, co-extinction are the causes for biodiversity loss. Describe the structure of pollen grain of angiosperms. Pollen grains are generally spherical, measuring about 20 to 25 micron meter in diameter. It has an outer exine and an inner intine. Outer exine is chemically made up of sporopylanin. and inner pectocellulosic content in case of intine. Intine is made up of pectocellulosic content. So the pollen grain exine has prominent apertures which are called as germ pores, where sporopollen is absent on the germ pores. A mature pollen grain has two male nucleus or gametes and a large vegetative cell or tube cell. The large vegetative cell has abundant reserve food material. The generative cell floats in the cytoplasm of vegetative cell. The cell within a cell concept you can notice there. Then there was the neat label diagram of sectional view of human male reproductive system. So there was the diagram of it. So the male reproductive system with 10 labelings, each labeling carries 5 marks, has to be described, and the diagram has to be drawn. So female reproductive system and male reproductive system are frequently asked questions, diagram oriented questions. Then they have asked in the 29th question, explain Mendel's experiment to describe inheritance of one gene with reference to height of pea plant. So you have to write the with reference to height of pea plant, that is homozygous tall and homozygous dwarf. You have to write the F1 generation, F2 generation, then give the genotypic ratio, which is 1:2:1. Phenotypic ratio is 3:1. So you have to write the checkerboard and all that. So to get the 5 marks, very easy question. So this is about monohybrid cross more of. Then the 30th question is mention the salient features of Human Genome Project or HGP. The Human Genome Project contains 3164.7 million nucleotides, that is 3164.7 million nucleotide bases. The average gene consists of 3000 bases, but size varies greatly, with the largest human gene known as dystrophin, which is at 2.4 million bases. The total number of genes estimated at 30,000, much lower than previous estimates of 80,000 to 1,40,000 genes, almost 99.9%. Nucleotide bases are exactly the same in all people. The functions are unknown for over 50% of discovered genes. Less than 2% of the genome codes for proteins. Repeated sequences make up a very large portion of the human genome. Repetitive sequences are stretches of DNA sequences that are repeated many times, sometimes 100 to 1000 times. So they are thought to have no direct coding functions, but they shed light on chromosome structures, dynamics, and evolution. Chromosome 1 has most genes and the Y has the fewest genes. So the most genes of chromosome 1 is 2968 genes they have, whereas the Y chromosome has the least genes of 231 genes. Scientists have identified about 1.4 million locations where single base DNA nucleotides, DNA differences, that is SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphism, pronounced as SNPs, occur in humans. This information promises to revolutionize the process of finding chromosomal location for disease-associated sequences and tracing human history. Name the diseases caused by the following organisms. Rhinovirus causes common cold. Epidermophyton causes ringworm. Salmonella typhi causes typhoid. Wucheria malae causes filariasis or elephantiasis. Plasmodium vivax causes malaria. What is beekeeping? Write any 4 points for successful beekeeping or apiculture. Beekeeping is the maintenance of hives of honeybees for the production of honey and bee wax. Knowledge of the nature and habits of bees, selection of suitable location for keeping the beehives, catching and hiving of swarms, management of beehives during different seasons, handling and collection of honey and of bee wax. Describe the biogas plant with a neat label diagram. The biogas plant consists of a concrete tank 10 to 15 feet deep in which biogas are collected and slurry of dung is fed. A floating cover is placed over the slurry, which keeps on rising as the gas produced in the tank due to the microbial activity. The biogas plant has an outlet which is connected to a pipe to supply biogas to nearby houses. The spent slurry is removed through another outlet and it is utilized as fertilizer. So you have to draw the biogas plant diagram. So 3 marks are for diagram with labeling. So nearly 6 labelings you have to draw, and 2 marks are for the description of it. What is biopiracy? It is the use of bioresources by multinational companies and other organizations without authorization from the countries and people concerned and without paying any compensatory payment. So this is what is called as biopiracy. How does ADA deficiency cured by gene therapy? ADA is nothing but adenosine deaminase deficiency. So the treatment of it is lymphocytes from the blood of the patients are grown in a culture outside the body. A functional ADA cDNA, complementary DNA, using a retroviral vector is then introduced into these lymphocytes, which are subsequently returned to the patient. However, as these cells are not immortal, the patient requires periodic infusion of such genetically engineered lymphocytes. If the gene isolated from marrow cells producing ADA is introduced into cells at very early embryonic stages, it could be a permanent cure. So then the next question that they have asked, 35th, is what is ecological succession? Right types of plant succession represent pyramid of number in grassland ecosystem. So it is 1 plus 1 plus 3 marks. That is how they have categorized the marks. The gradual and fairly predictable change in the species composition of a given area is called as ecological succession. The gradual and fairly predictable change in the species composition of a given area is called as ecological succession. The types of plant succession are primary succession and secondary succession. Then C is pyramid of number in grassland ecosystem. You have to write with the different trophic levels, the pyramid of numbers, and number of individuals also you have to mention. So remember to draw this, which is for 3 marks. Then the 36th question that they have asked is explain mutualism with examples. Mutualism is an interaction between two organisms of different species where both partners are benefited. The participating or interacting species are called mutualists or symbionts. Example, lichens. It is a mutual association between algae and fungi where algae prepares food and it is utilized by fungi. In turn, the fungi provides nutrients for food preparation. Example, rhizobium and legume root nodules also exhibit mutualism, which is involved in symbiotic nitrogen fixation. Rhizobium gets shelter and food. Legume root gets nitrogen from rhizobium bacteria. Mycorrhizate is a symbiotic association between fungi and roots of higher plant. Fungi gets nutrients and plants gets phosphorus. Cellulosic digestion in ruminant is also an example for ruminants. The mutualism. Cellulose is digested by gut bacteria in the ruminants. In turn, bacteria get ready food in the gut of ruminants. Pollination by wasp in figs and Pyrus orchid. Wasp gets nectar from flowers during their foraging. Flowers in turn gets pollinated. That is prerequisite for fertilization. So these are examples for mutualism. So you can quote around 4 examples, and 1 mark is for the definition of mutualism. So if it is purely mutualism with examples, I think 5 examples you have to write. Write a brief account of electrostatic precipitator with a label diagram. So you have to draw that diagram. The diagram is for 2 marks and explanation is for 3 marks. So the explanation that you can write for electrostatic precipitator is it has electrovires that are maintained at several thousand volts, which produce corona that releases electron. These electrons attach to dust particles, giving them a negative charge. The collecting plates are grounded and attract the charged dust particles. The velocity of air between the plates must be low enough to allow the dust to form. It can remove over 99% of particulate matter which is present in the exhaust from a thermal power plant. That is the last question of our March 2017 question paper. So best wishes for the students. You just have to be prepared for some diagrams, and as I told you, point wise, if you answer it, you're very sure to score good marks. So best wishes for all of you. Have a nice day. Thank you.